everybody doing?
Hey, Coach.
Thanks for everybody for being here. Really appreciate you guys taking the time, obviously, to cover Marshall University, Marshall football, and all that you guys do. So I appreciate you guys. 6 practices in to spring. We are making progress. We are not where we need to be. We're not where we will be, but we are making progress. We've been lucky enough to get all 6 practices in with no COVID restrictions or shutdowns. So that is a plus. The guys are making some fundamental improvements, but we got a long way to go. Not one of these coaches going to get up here and tell you everything's great. We are not at the level of consistency and performance that I would like to be. There are some bright spots. There's some guys that are making some plays, that are guys that are standing out. But the consistency level in order to be a champion is not there yet. The good thing is the coaches, the players, the whole organization understands it, and we know we got to continue to work. The players' work ethic and attitude has been great. They are learning how to practice. They're learning how to study. They're learning how to meet the way that my staff and I are setting the foundation for them. But we do have a long way to go. I said to the team yesterday, it's one thing to play hard. It's one thing to play with really good effort, but execution and consistency win football games. And that's the step that we're constantly trying to make with each and every position group, each and every player. And we are on a good path, but we are running out of time, is what I told them. The NCAA allows us 15 of these opportunities, so we got to maximize every one. And I said to the team yesterday, we are living in a day and age where we don't know what this virus will allow us to do tomorrow. So we have to maximize the time that we do have, and we can't waste today. So long way to go, but definitely excited about the opportunity, excited about the players' approach, but have to nail down on the consistency and the execution factor in order for us to close the gap. So with that, I'll open it up to some guys. I'm sure you got questions.
All right, Grant, first question.
Coach, you mentioned some of these guys that have stood out. Who are the guys that have really caught your eye so far this spring?
Yeah, it's kind of like shooting stars. Like you'll see one guy flash, and then you don't see him for 2 or 3 plays. You'll see one great play, and then it's kind of like, is that guy still in there? Obviously Grant is doing some good things. He looks like he's a lot more mature. Obviously I have not seen him in the past, but he's making some really good decisions. The same thing goes, one play he looks like Joe Montana. The next play he looks like a sophomore in college. So from a consistency standpoint, we got to get him started first, because obviously the game on offense starts with the quarterback. He is making progress. I think being in this system another year is helping him. But we got to help him. We got to help him play more consistent and eliminate the flash and have more of a consistent light, is that what we're trying to get across. Caleb McMillan is a guy who played a little bit last year, who's doing some really good things. Talik is probably the most consistent in that group right now, him and Corey Gamage. Some of the younger guys are making some flash plays, but then there's a couple of times where you're kind of like, well, who was that? Obviously Xavier Gaines has played a lot of football here. Devin Miller's played a lot of football. Amir has done some really good things. Across the board, the sentiment or the statements, consistency. And obviously you guys look back on last year, I wasn't here, but there were some games where the whole team looked really, really good. And then there were some head scratchers. We have got to eliminate the head scratchers and play a lot more consistent. Up front, those guys are a veteran group, so they've been kind of molding pretty good. Will Omer has done a really good job kind of anchoring down that O-line spot and helping guys. We are moving some guys around. Him and Adams are moving around a bunch, trying to get those guys. We call him Dump Truck. Dump Truck's been a guy we moved around a lot. What we're trying to do is create some consistency and depth. Because we don't know what 5 guys are going to be able to play. And we can't just say, well, you're a left tackle or you're a right guard or you're a center. We got to be able to say you're one of the best 5. Now, with that comes some uncomfortableness from them because they are moving around, but I think it's going to help us in the long run. On the defensive side, Kobe and Owen are 2 veteran guys who play like veterans. But again, I told the team the veterans got to play more consistent than they have in the past. Jamari Edwards is doing a really good job inside. Emmanuel Bungalang is doing a really good job. We call him E-Man. He's one of the younger guys who didn't play a lot that's starting to come on. Bush on the inside is a guy that flashes sometimes. Cavalcante, Beauplan, those guys are kind of consistent in their play. But then again, there's 3 or 4 plays in a period where, you're like, well, who's the Mike? And that's the thing we gotta continue to get better at. Drayton has been really good on the back end. Gilmore is probably the most consistent on the back end right now. Obviously, he's got a lot of playing experience. Bowers, JoJo Evans is probably the guy that's probably showing the most improvement just from a guy who didn't play a lot. But again, it goes back, those same guys, they make 3 good plays. EJ Jackson makes a good play, and then he's not in the right gap on a run. Now, I will say we are practicing extremely 180-degree difference from the way they practice in the past. So we get a lot of reps. So those guys are having to think when they're tired. I tell them all the time, mental fatigue precedes physical fatigue. So a lot of the stuff you see is because they're more worried about, catching their breath than making the call. It's going to help us in the long run. These games are 4 quarters, and you got to be able to win in the 4th quarter. The season is a long season. To eliminate the back end kind of fall off, how do you do that? Well, you got to practice consistently throughout the year, throughout the spring, throughout the summer. And that's what they're learning how to do, if that kind of makes sense.
Keith Morehouse.
Hey, Coach. With 6, I'm good, thank you. With 6 practices under your belt, as you've been able to kind of ascertain the talent that you have coming in, how do you evaluate? Is it about what you thought it would be? And then how has the buy-in been from the players who obviously have to buy into this new system and it's a whole new regime in charge now?
Yeah, well, the buy-in has been phenomenal. These guys have done everything we've asked them to do. They don't know how to do it yet, but they are doing what we're asking them to do. They're still learning when the horn blows, where to go. So that's part of it. It's hard to tell if a player is willing if he doesn't know. Because obviously when we all start thinking, we slow down. So what we're trying to do is stay as consistent as possible in our approach, practice schedule, times of practice, how many reps, as consistent as we can, so they get a little bit of a routine. We are a talented football team, but again, I don't want to paint a dark picture. Talent doesn't win football games. Talent wins the NFL Combine. You go, you run a good 40, everybody claps. Execution and consistency and performance wins football games. So I tell those guys all the time, they look back at last year, there were times when they were the most talented team on the field that they weren't successful. Well, what happens? Consistency and performance. And that's what I'm trying to get these guys to understand. I don't want to focus on our talent. I want to focus on our execution because yes, don't get me wrong. You got to have good players in order to execute. But sometimes when you are a good player, you rely on your talent and you don't really focus on the details. And that's when you end up getting beat. And I think the players are buying into that. I think they believe that. It's just we're unwiring and rewiring a lot of fundamentals, a lot of techniques, a lot of scheduling. It's completely different. And that's not a knock to say what was done in the past was right or wrong. It's just different. Is English or Spanish the right language? They're different. That doesn't make one right, one wrong. They're just different. So I really think as we continue to move forward, if we can keep a positive attitude, we can keep working, we can keep competing, and we keep the discipline and doing the little things right, I think the light will come on. I think it will turn over.
Tom Bragg.
Hey, Coach, how are we doing this morning?
I'm great, man. How are you?
Hanging in there.
I like that WWE belt in the background. I like that. My son
thanks.
will love that.
Oh, man, thanks. It's one of the fake ones, though. I didn't win it. So curious with obviously having to replace Brendan Knox, that's a pretty productive guy you got to replace. Your background is in running backs. What's your early take on the group of running backs that you have on campus right now?
Yeah, I think you see, obviously Sheldon Evans is limited right now, but I think you see exactly what happens when you have a featured or premier guy at that position. There's a lot of guys behind him with talent that just didn't get the experience. So that's what we see now. You know, we got Pop, we got Ali, we got Knowledge right now that are working in. All of those guys have talent, just they don't have the experience yet that a Knox would have or that Evans would have. So a lot of it's new for them. So you're tying in new coach, new system, new philosophy, new practice plan, and I've only played a handful of plays in college football anyway. So it's all a little bit new, but they have shown some ability. I think all three of them right now is kind of, again, consistency. One play, Pop jumps out. One play, Ali jumps out. One play, Knowledge makes a good catch. And then there's 3 plays when you're like, are we playing with 10 guys or what? So I think for them, it's not only understanding that this is a marathon and not a sprint, but they are gaining the experience needed to learn how to be consistent. And I think when you have, obviously in my past, you've had the backs that have played 2 and 3 years, they have a little bit better knowledge of the game of football in college in general, the speed, the angles, the power that you need. The younger guys, they learn that. But kind of going back to what Keith says, they do have we do have some really good talent in that room. We just got to kind of mold it so that we can see it on a more consistent basis.
Mark Martin.
Hey, Coach, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I do want to ask you, I mean, after all was said and done and you visited all the restaurants and did your media tour and talked to a lot of people, you finally get down to business of what you're here to do, and that's coach football. What was it like that first day getting a chance to run your own program for the first time in your career?
Yeah, it was like a beautiful nightmare is what it was. From the fluff and the pats on the back, it was phenomenal. Everything I could have dreamed of. From the execution, the snap, the pop, the consistency, the attention to detail, we got a long way to go. I think I said it in the very first press conference we had. I'm not into the emotional, hey, first time head coach, I'm enjoying it. I'm into trying to help these guys close the gap. And when you have that mindset, you're not looking around the indoor, around the stadium anymore saying, wow. You're looking at the footwork of the left guard. You're looking at the drop of the DN. You're looking at the leverage of the DB. You're looking at the arm angle of the quarterback. And you're saying, how can I help that guy get better? And then the next play, how can I help that guy get better? And then the next play, how can I help that guy get better? And then practice is over and you're going back to the film. So you really don't get a chance to look around and take a deep breath. I did that the very first day I was here. It was phenomenal. It was emotional. But now the next time I'll take a deep breath is after the last game of the year, getting ready for the next game. And that's the mentality that I think everybody that's involved with this organization has got to have. The parade is over. The band has played. We've gone through the town. We threw candy out. Everybody's going home now, and it's time to go to work. If we stay at the parade site, it's going to be a very unsuccessful season the longer we stay there. And don't get me wrong, I'm extremely grateful, appreciative, humble. Couldn't be more excited every day I wake up at 4:30 to come to the building. But I understand when I do get up, there's work to be done. There's work to be done, obviously, on the field, X's and O's. There's work to be done organizationally. There's work to be done in this community. I've got to find a way to put a product on the field that is consistent so that everybody from here to California wants to come watch us play. That's my goal. And that's a daily stride to close that gap. And until we get to that point, I don't know when it's going to be. I tell the players all the time, we'll be as good as they decide to be. When they decide that the little things matter, consistency is important. Execution is the only way. Yeah, the stadium would be full. Until then, I may still be juggling and going by sheets, begging people to come. But I do think, for the most part, the players, the people in the organization are working toward that goal.
Justin Zimmer.
Hi, Coach. How are you?
I'm good, man.
All right, Coach. I want to ask a question about, I think, what the biggest headline is going to be from your opening statement about you guys aren't where you guys want to be 6 practices in. So where do you guys see yourselves going from here, and where do you envision yourself starting March 19th to where you'd be now?
Yeah, well, obviously, I got very high expectations. I said that in the very beginning. So it's rarely ever going to be good enough. And that's not a knock. This is not Little League. Everybody doesn't get a trophy. Everybody doesn't get to turn it back. Everybody doesn't play the field for 2 innings. That's not how it works. It is a execution results business. So organization, I am looking for things to improve. You won't survive in this program or around me if you're looking for a pat on the back. It's not that I don't want to give you one, but while I'm patting you on the back, I could be helping you get better at something else. What is our focus? Our focus is today at 2:30, we're going to have the best meetings we've ever had. And then tomorrow, we're going to attack tomorrow. And trying to get everybody to understand that this is a daily, hourly approach, not a, hey, the spring game is coming up, what are we going to be doing? Or, hey, the first game is in X amount of months. Because if you work and look at the process, then you will get to the goal. If you look at the goal, you're going to miss some step in the process that probably is going to help you achieve that goal.
Dr. Grant.
Yeah, Coach, sort of jumping on what Bragg said too, I was interested in the running backs. Obviously, this running back group has not been called on as pass catchers much in the past. Obviously, that's likely to change within the up-tempo stuff. And you mentioned the lack of experience for some of those guys. One, how different is the dynamic going to be for these guys moving forward? And two, is it a little bit easier for you on the spring because those guys haven't had that many reps, so they don't have to necessarily unlearn everything?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of the second part there. You know, these guys haven't had as many reps, so this is new learning. This is not repainting. So to them, it's new learning. The beauty of the system is, yes, we are going to up the tempo. We're going to try to play a lot faster. We are going to push the ball down the field. But when you do that, it really opens up the running game. You know what I mean? So now teams are not in the best position to play both. If we can't push the ball down the field because they're playing a defense that doesn't allow us to do that, then that means they're not playing us to run the ball. The beauty of it is, I think the backs that we have here, I didn't watch any film on Knox, so I don't know. I think the backs that we have here can do both. They can be a threat in the pass game, and they can run the ball efficiently. The one thing that I do know about these guys is they don't go down easy. They break tackles. They got good body and balance control. They got a good agility and athleticism. They got good short area quickness. So that's going to create opportunities for them in the run game to break tackles and get yacked. It's going to create opportunities for them in the pass game to catch the ball and be a threat as well. So I think for them, this is a positive because they're not coming from a system where they had 200, 300 carries and it was a certain offense and they were used to running and they weren't used to getting in the pass game. It's all new to them. So yeah, they're swimming a little bit from a grasping exactly, how to do things. But they are moving forward, if that makes sense. They are getting better. We're better than we were day one. Yes. We're better than we were day two. Yes. But are we ready to line up and play? I think it's Navy or no, not even close. But are we where we were when we started? No. So yes, to your point, their lack of experience is probably a positive for what we're trying to do now.
Ms. Landon.
Hey, Charles.
Yeah.
I was reading that your basic defensive alignment is going to be nickel. Is that right? Okay. Is that?
It's gonna be nickel. And if you look at college football now, that's the base defensive alignment for 99% of the teams because of what offenses have done. Offenses have taken the game and they've stretched it vertically and horizontally. So now you got to have a guy in that, you say, nickel spot who can play in coverage and can tackle. Well, that guy is hard to find, man. I mean, now we're lucky, we got some guys who have done both. I think Johnson's been a really good job, done a good job there. Martin kind of flirted with it a little bit last year. He's doing more, but it's hard to find both because he's got to cover the slot receiver who's usually the fastest or the slipperiest guy on the field. And he's got to fit the C gap in some run game stuff. So he's got to have a little bit of courage. So yes, we're going to play what you would consider nickel, but that guy is going to probably look different than an NFL nickel who's out there just to cover, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Will that lead to more blitzing from the defense?
No, we are going to pressure a lot. We're going to win or lose the game pressuring, because for me and my philosophy on offense, the thing you hate the most is having to redirect the mic, slide the line, make sure you're covered on the blitzes, make sure you're protected. It limits what you can do. It limits how fast you play. And it creates an exciting brand of football for the defensive players. And it allows our guys to dictate the tempo on defense. Usually most offenses dictate the tempo, you blitz in certain situations. We want to kind of take a little bit of that control back. When you blitz, the ball comes out a little quicker, so now our corners can play a little bit more stouter on the edge. Now we got an opportunity not to get the ball so far down the field because we're putting a little pressure. It comes out quicker. We can rally to the tackle. So I think it creates a little bit of an advantage for the defense if you can do it and execute. You blitz the wrong gap, you just help the offense. You don't blitz when you're supposed to blitz, you just help the offense. You don't rotate to the right side, you just help the offense. So again, the execution and consistency of it will allow us to do more, or allow us to kind of flirt with it a little bit.
And that'll be a big change. I think the fan base will really enjoy that because this will be a big change from what's been here in the past.
Yeah, and I think the players kind of see that. And again, that doesn't mean that not blitzing is not successful. My philosophy is that anytime you can create motion, creates emotion. So when offensive guys see guys moving on defense, the O-line's got to communicate, quarterback's got to communicate, the right guard's got to talk to the left tackle. We got to slide everything one way. There's a lot that's got to go on. And when you talk about execution, the breakdown in execution is normally in communication. Someone doesn't communicate across the board. We got 10 players playing one thing. We got one player playing another. The ball usually finds the guy that's wrong. It's usually how it happens.
Thanks, Charles.
Back to Martin.
Coach, obviously a great collection of talent with your coaching staff, and now you've gotten a chance to be out on the field really working with these guys. What's your impressions as you've moved along here in spring drills?
Yeah. These guys have been phenomenal. Obviously, this is a new schedule routine approach for them as well. None of these guys were with me at Alabama. So a lot of the things that we're doing is new to them, and they have done a phenomenal job of embracing the change. They've done a phenomenal job of building bridges of relationships with the players. They've done a phenomenal job of teaching and adapting. I think what kind of goes unnoticed a lot of times is a coach's ability to adapt. This is the system that we run, or this is the system, this is the way I teach. Well, if you got 5 players in your room that don't learn that way, you got to be able to adapt so you can teach those guys. And I think our staff has done a phenomenal job of that. We've been creative with our teaching styles. We've been creative with our installations. So I think that helps the players. I think anytime you can ignite the mental juices of these guys, it helps them learn, remember, recall a little bit better.
Dr. Grant.
Hey, Coach, talking about your pressure a little bit, does it help in the transition to that, knowing that you've got a secondary with a pretty good bit of experience with Johnson and Drayton and Gilmore and some of those guys, or sort of like I was asking with the running backs, is that a situation where they are basically new players because of what you're doing?
Yeah, I think, it puts them in a little bit of a new range. Probably puts a little bit more emphasis on technique and fundamentals. When you're pressuring, you're a little bit on an island. You're probably a little tighter than you normally have. When you are pressuring from the secondary perspective, you got guys that are blitzing that may not know how to blitz, how to edge the defense. So they're learning that. And again, the lack of experience is probably helping them develop the new trends or the new fundamentals that they need to do what we're trying to do. And I think for them, it's exciting. They like to be able to change it up. What we got to get all of them to do is play with a lot more consistency. So how am I blitzing? What is my disguise when I'm not blitzing? Where do I need to get to exactly? Not in the area, exactly where do I need to be when this ball snaps? So I think for them, it's a little bit of learning their skill set because we're attacking or addressing a new skill set. So they're learning that new skill set within themselves.
Hey, Coach, the spring game's a few weeks out. What do you envision for the spring game? And are you one of those coaches who likes those, or is it more just a kind of an end of practice celebration? What's your take on those spring games?
It's the 15th opportunity for us to get better. I think for us, especially in year one, it's an opportunity for us to work the pregame routine. That's going to be new. The players have never had it pregame. So we're going to do something a little different. We're going to actually go through a full Saturday morning routine. So we're going to go to the hotel Saturday morning. We're going to have chapel. We're going to have our meal. We're going to load the bus. We're going to come over and do the herd walk. We're going to go in the locker room. We're going to come out in our stretch groups. So our guys get the true routine because remember, it's all new. How we eat pregame meal is new. How we have chapel is new. How we have pregame walkthrough is new. How we have our chair drill at the hotel is new. So I'm using this as an opportunity, one, as the 15th practice so we can get some actual playing on the field. And then two, as an opportunity to teach our guys our pregame, game, morning of, that whole deal, that whole routine, so that when we do kick off the season, there's not guys late to pregame meal because they didn't know. It's not guys that don't know what the chair drill looks like. It's not guys that don't know what the herd walk looks like. It's guys that don't know what time my group goes out for stretch. So for me, it's an opportunity to get a practice run at all of that.
Chuck, did you have another one?
No.
All right, guys, does anybody have anything else?
Again,
Thanks,
guys,
Charles.
I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Charles.
Again, I apologize that because of COVID, you guys can't be here. I know it just as I got close to going to the administration to ask, we had a COVID scare around the university. So we were trying to do everything we can to include you guys, but also keep our guys safe. I just don't want to lose practice days or get any of my players, sick. That's ultimately what it is. And as this virus is wild as it is, I'm not even sure we understand exactly where it is, what it looks like, how it transmits fully as a country, as we're still learning and working through that. So the players are doing a phenomenal job of trying to stay safe. Our administration is doing a phenomenal job of keeping our players safe. So I am willing to do these because I know a lot of the stuff that you guys would get from being at practice, this helps. So I'm willing to do whatever I can until we can kind of get a hold on this thing. But we are rocking and rolling. Hopefully we can get you guys in the stadium for the spring game, which I think will be huge for the community. It'd be huge for the fans. It'd be huge for our players. So looking forward to it. Thank you guys and go Herd.